Hello, welcome back. It is week 113 on the biggest little podcast from each side of the Mississippi. Out on that line, I'm the host, Jeff, with my co-host, Alex. How you doing this week?
You put a little flair on that one this week,
I
Jeff.
put a little bit of sauce on it today.
Did you plan that, or did that just come out of you spontaneously?
Well, I during my weekly lawn mowing today, I decided to just give some thought instead of listening to podcasts or anything, just take some time with my thoughts. And I was like, what can make the podcast exciting today? It'd been a couple weeks since we recorded one. And I just thought about all those kind of great taglines. I think about Bruce Springsteen, and he's always like the earthquaking, Viagra taking, legendary E Street band, like this whole story, ZZ Top calling themselves the biggest little band in Texas, and I think just kind of played off of that, and it felt good. That one felt right.
Well, and also, Jeff, you get bonus points for it being super on theme with this week's episode. You were kind of doing a cover of a remix of a cover, drawing from these influences, taking them and making them your own. And this week, we're doing an artist who did just that. Who are we doing this week, Jeff? You tell people.
I just got to say, this is a hot start. I just want
This
to
is
get
a
that out of the
hot
way.
start.
Yeah, this one feels pretty good. We're going to be talking about T-Pain and his newest album, On Top of the Covers, which, if you aren't aware, is all covers, just done as T-Pain. And there's some doozies in there. So there are some fantastic moments on that album, and I'm excited to talk about it and the other things that it's going to bring up as well. But first, I got to say, I went and saw my man, our man of the pod, Tyler Childers, in concert, live and in the flesh in Houston last week. And I got to say, one of the most amazing concert experiences that I've had. It's just his talent, like he sounds exactly like the albums. And sometimes people are like, oh, it should be more exciting live. It was because of that, because the albums are so good, at least in my opinion. I think a lot of people would agree. But his voice is so distinctive. And if anything, it was even more powerful live than you hear, on the albums. And played for 2 hours straight, started out with an acoustic set, just like him and the guitar, and that's it. Probably about 8 songs or so, 8 or 9 songs, and then brought out the Food Stamps, the full band, and just brought the place down for like an hour and 20 minutes with the full band. And it was, that's why you go see live music, is to see concerts like I was able to see from Tyler Childers. Well, what do you say we get into talking about the covers from On Top of the Covers by our man Tallahassee Payne? Now, I think this is the first T-Pain album we've done on the show. We've talked about him plenty, but I think this is the first like dedicated content we've done for the show, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you are not mistaken. I have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything we've done on this show. It's like, I can't tell you when the Magna Carta was, but I can tell you like what was the first 9 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So you're correct. We've never done T-Pain as keeper of the lore. I can confirm.
Excellent. So I don't know what prompted him to, do this covers album. I think he's branched less. He's gone away from just making straight up hits, because he had some bangers back in the day. I mean, you look at his like top songs on Spotify, like hundreds of millions of plays on those. The guy has been successful, but I think he spent a lot of time recently with his podcast. I think that's a fun thing that he does, that he dedicates a lot of time to. There's always random videos of him singing covers of songs, like little snippets. Like I remember seeing him do a cover of Stay With Me that he does on this album, at a live concert or something like that. And I remember thinking at that point, I was like, wow, I like that a whole lot better than the Sam Smith version. That was the thing on this, is I may not have, that was one that I definitely liked T-Pain's version more. But overall, like a lot of them, I just appreciated hearing a different version of it, because like Tennessee Whiskey, I love that song. I love Chris Stapleton's version, which is the one like everybody knows. You've got to be under a rock if you haven't heard that song. But to me, it's just the quality of the covers, and like you can kind of hear that he really appreciates these songs and he really does like them a lot. That really comes through, and he's such a good singer. I mean, he uses the auto-tune that he's like known for in places on this album, but I think it's completely undeniable at this point that this guy is one of the best singers in the pop music, like R&B genre, just pure talent alone.
Which again makes the whole auto-tune thing crazy. And I have nothing to back this up, but part of me wonders if it was like, let's do a cover album to kind of prove to everybody once and for all that T-Pain is talent, T-Pain's got a voice,
Mhm.
that the auto-tune was a fun gimmick, and then it just like got away, it got out of control. So like stepping out from that, and I don't know his last album, I guess is the first one in like 4 years, but stepping out from that kind of like buy you a drink sort of
Mhm.
sort of sound, it was very interesting. It was very interesting. Some of the shit I loved, and some of it just like I couldn't give a velvet painting of a whale and a dolphin getting it on.
Yeah, I felt that way about Don't Stop Believing. Like I was reluctant to even listen to that song because I really don't like that one in the first place.
I fucking hate that song.
Yeah, I mean, I love Journey. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Journey, but Don't Stop Believing specifically, it to me is trash. I mean, it was my
Gargles my
graduation
balls.
song in high school, and it really just got so overplayed, and I really didn't feel like all that connected with my graduating class. Like most of my friends were, like basically all my friends were from outside of my graduating class. I think I had like two or three in my graduating class that I really remained close with. So I just like that song just doesn't do anything for me. I think it's really cheesy. You know, it's basically just like an easy rock version of Living on a Prayer. You know, it's just like doesn't do it for me. There's no edge to it. There's nothing interesting about it. It's the worst thing Journey's ever done. And on this album, it is clearly the worst song for me.
It was the worst song, but T-Pain did his best to polish a turd.
Hmm.
It was a really valiant effort because, yeah, boy, Don't Stop Believing sucks my balls. I fucking hate that song. And the thing is, I didn't used to, but you're absolutely right. The ubiquity of it. People just like every time you're at a fucking bar or a dance or a function, you just hear that piano, and then everybody in the place, just a small town girl.
Hmm.
And you just want to drive a fucking oyster fork into your eyeball. I hate that song now so fucking much. And when I saw it on here, I was so pissed. But he made chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Yes,
You know what I'm
I
saying?
would agree with that. Yeah, it was the least offensive version of the song that I've heard. That's for sure. Yeah,
Absolutely.
as you say, pretty faint and damning praise, I think. But to me, I just he also when he made this album, didn't he kind of say he's like, "Oh, this is just a bunch of songs white people like." I think was
I don't know, but that's amazing.
I think I think that was he might have said it like in passing or something, or somebody like on Twitter said it and he just like liked it as like a subtle like, yeah, kind of. Because I mean, you go through the list of this. I mean, a change is going to come. You know, that one you could say either way, but I would say it's just a classic that probably a lot of white people like. Don't
Sure.
Stop Believing. Only white people like that
White
song.
girl catnip.
Sharing the Night Together. You know, that one's Dr. Hook. Definitely. It's a white people band.
I super
Scrangs is
love
just an
that
instrumental
song.
that's kind of, oh, I love this his version of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Stay With Me, white girl song.
Yep.
Tennessee Whiskey, white people song. That's Life is Frank Sinatra, white people song.
The
You
whitest white
know,
dude ever.
War Pigs, like your weird uncle listens to War Pigs. Like that's definitely a white people song, you know. So I feel like saw something about that, and that would explain every bit of why Don't Stop Believin' made it onto this album.
Yeah, that's an excellent hypothesis, whoever came up with that. And I absolutely buy it, and that's the most amazing thing ever because yeah, I was I was somewhat baffled. I'm like, well, you got Sam Smith, who's like a satanic egg. He just he's just like I've never got the appeal of Sam Smith. And so taking something that he did and again making chicken salad out of chicken shit, I appreciate. So it's like not only did he take music that white people with bad taste love, but he again really did polish a turd, make a lot of these
Mhm.
enjoyable. Um, and some of it not so much, like hot take apparently, but war pigs, I couldn't give a tinker's fig.
Mhm.
I just didn't really like it that much. I didn't hate it, but I'm like, whatever. His sharing sharing the night together, impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
His version of that made me smile ear to ear. I listened to it still. Fantastic. But yeah, War Pigs didn't really move the needle for me.
And that is, I think that is probably the only spot on this album where we're really gonna diverge in our opinions, is because I love his cover of that, but I'm also a metalhead. I think a lot more than you are. I think you definitely spread your taste out a lot more than I do as far as like what you listen to on a daily basis. You know, I tend to skew very aggressive with what I listen to, what I go out of my way to listen to. War Pigs by Black Sabbath. I love Black Sabbath, so going to be right up my alley. Someone as good as T-Pain singing it, going to be right up my alley. So like that one hit for me, but I can see if you're not already like a big fan of that song, why it wouldn't really do much for you either.
It's another one that's kind of a casualty of its own ubiquity. Not to the point that I hate it, but it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
it's War Pigs.
Yeah.
Everyone knows War Pigs. Generals gathered in their masses. Like that's another, you hear the beginning of it and
Mm-hmm.
everyone activates like a room full of MK Ultra victims. And that one for me, I think exemplifies a question going into this and coming out of this. Covers. What do you personally prefer? Something that is faithful for the most part and covered by somebody else, or something that kind of puts a little stank on it? Not unlike what you did at the beginning of the episode.
Well, I'm going to give what's going to seem like a very non-committal answer here. And it's going to be, it depends. So, you know, a song like War Pigs, I love how heavy that song is to start with. You know, I love that it's got this message of like, you know, politicians and the military industrial complex is what's going to really kind of bring us down as a society. You know, so I really enjoy it for that reason, and I like that he was fairly faithful with that cover. You know, he T-pained it a little bit in some spots, but you know, there was not seemed like the same styles of instrumentation and things like that throughout the song. Now you look at something like Bruce Springsteen's album Only the Strong Survive, and those are all very faithful covers and did not do a damn thing for me. So,
Yep.
you know, it really, that's what I'm saying. It depends. You know, it really depends on how much I feel like you really care about what you're singing. And now I don't expect him to have like a deep emotional connection with any of these songs. You know, maybe change is going to come. You know, there's definitely some that, you know, have a message to them, you know, and War Pig certainly does, but to less of an extent than a change is going to come. You know what I mean? So I think you have to kind of gauge by how much you really enjoy hearing what you're listening to, because based on like how much they're enjoying doing it. Now, whether they're faithful to the cover or not, you know, think of like The Sound of Silence, you know, the Simon and Garfunkel version. I love that version, but I also love that Disturbed version. You know, they're two completely different takes on the song, but I think they both deliver the same message, just in different kind of emotional keys. You know, I think there's more of a sadness to Simon and Garfunkel. There's more of an anger in the Disturbed version. You know, Along the Watchtower by Bob Dylan, covered by Jimi Hendrix. I mean, it's just like, those are just the examples that come to mind where it's like they go drastically different, but I enjoy both the same.
And that's the thing, is if the original is very precious to you, like Simon and Garfunkel, everyone imprints on that song the way that it is, and it's very well known, and everyone's kind of got like a connection to that. So you probably don't want to see someone else try to do it. You love it for what it is. Why are you trying to see the same thing over again by somebody else? Which is
Mhm.
why when like David Draymond and Disturbed come in and do something so radically different, that's interesting to me, and that's what makes it really like a cover more so than karaoke. I skew heavily, you gotta do something different,
Mhm.
and you gotta it doesn't have to be, like, wildly different. You can do very, like, subtle, small things like T-Pain did on Tennessee Whiskey. He stripped that way back. I mean, there
Mhm.
were whole passages of it where it's just him with,
Mhm.
like, an echo effect, and it gave it a whole new meaning and a whole new flavor, and that interests me. I'm like, all right, he went like, I'm curious to see what he's gonna do here when it starts, and it like takes you on a ride. I appreciate that. I think to me, one of the best examples of that, and I've talked about this before, is the band Mutoid Man
Mhm.
covered Purple Rain.
Yes.
It was fucking perfect because it walked the line between being recognizable and faithful and being totally metal. They did
Mhm.
just enough different to make it themselves, like make it Mutoid Man. They did just enough. It's one of the most like absolutely perfect covers. It's exactly what I look for in a successful cover.
Yeah, and I think that's to me, I guess I would skew more towards like I'd be more interested in hearing like a new version, like a different interpretation of a song more than I'd like to hear a faithful cover of it. But it's I guess I don't see like that one inherently would have less value. It's just what's going to interest me probably is going to be something where they do something different. Like Tennessee Whiskey on this T-Pain album was beautiful. I mean, his voice, he's just got some that warmth to his voice, the same way that Chris Stapleton has, but I think Stapleton just has a little bit more of a raspy, just sounds more like a country bar than T-Pain is going to. But it's just a different version. It's more of a, it was always a soul song, but you can just really hear that when you can hear the really kind of clean vocals that T-Pain provides in this. He's just got such a nice timbre to his voice that it's just like the way it just goes with the song. You don't need the other instruments with him. You don't really need him with Chris Stapleton either. But T-Pain just does such a good job of using his voice as its own backup, I guess, so to speak. The way he does that, sharing the night together. I mean, that song is when he does it is I like that song anyway, but when he does it, it's gorgeous. I mean, that's the thing that I kept going back to. Stay with me. It's like I finally get it. I'm like, I know why people like this song in the first place because I couldn't stand it because I don't really. This is definitely very subjective, but I just really don't like Sam Smith's voice that much.
No.
For the same reasons that sometimes like who am I like Ariana Grande, like the way that it just the enunciation of the words isn't there. And that frustrates me sometimes. So like that's why his voice kind of grated on me. Hearing T-Pain do this song and really hearing the words it's amazing. It's a great song. And I would have never known that if he didn't do like a fairly faithful cover of that one. It was different enough, it was a more stripped back kind of thing, but it just to me really shined the light on like what that song was supposed to mean. Seemed like he pulled that out more than anybody else I'd ever heard be able to do it.
Yeah, and there's part of me that's like with something like War Pigs, you talk about the message of it and what's appropriate or inappropriate. And as a Frank Zappa guy, got him in. Um, Nothing's really off limits, right? Like you can take a song like War Pigs with a like rather dire message and you can do something kind of irreverent with it. And that's great. That's totally fine if you can swing it. But T-Pain chose not to do something like that. And I ultimately get it. I do. Because there were a couple pockets where I'm like, this feels like this is going to get super funked up. I
Mhm.
can't wait. And it's like it never got there. There were just these hints of it. And in the end, I'm like, this was just War Pigs. I was kind of hoping for more. But then that's an interesting question. Does it change the nature of the song too much if it's that clash of like subject matter and genre. So I get why he didn't change War Pigs.
Mhm.
Maybe his whole reason was I don't have a good interpretation of it. I'll just do it straight up.
And that's, I was thinking about that too. I feel like with something, Tennessee Whiskey that's more based in, kind of it's more of a structured kind of written song. Like War Pigs has a lot to it. There's breakdowns, there's bridges, it's heavy. The point of the song is the lyrics, is the message. So I feel like how do you really change that? I guess you could try to make it like a blues song. There's a lot of metal that can be made into blues and vice versa. Maybe you can do it that way, but I feel like it was more likely he liked the song as is and just didn't honestly think he had a better version of what he could come up with that was different. If he had another idea at all, he probably just didn't feel like it was better than doing the original.
Well, and to be fair, I look at something like if I were ever going to do a Steely Dan song or an Elvis Costello song, Donald Fagen, whatever, what have you, with like a distinct voice, that's so married to the song for me that I would wind up doing it that exact way because I can't hear it any other way. But then your gimmick is you're doing a fucking Donald Fagen impersonation. You're not really doing a cover. So it's this weird line that we walk between impersonation, tribute act, cover, karaoke. It's like a weird needle to thread. And this album kind of tried all of them for me. I think the stuff I liked the most was when he took it in a Tennessee whiskey type direction. I think the stuff I liked the least was stuff like the Frank Sinatra cover and War Pigs, because it was just like, who gives a rat's ass about Frank Sinatra?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely thought it was like, I listened to Frank Sinatra, I guess, like when the Yankees win in New York gets played, but that's really it that I ever am happy to hear from Frank Sinatra. So I definitely like T-Pain's cover of that song a lot more than I ever liked any other Frank Sinatra song. Like, that's the way to get me to listen to Frank Sinatra, is just have T-Pain cover it. I'll listen to it then. There's a place that you can go. You may already be here, but you're going to find a subscribe button, and that's on youtube.com/C/out on that line. You're going to hit that subscribe button, and then it's going to tell you every time that we post something new, and it's a couple times a week. Oh, you got to hit that notification button too. You got to do that right down there. You let us know what you want to hear. You let us know what sorts of things you like that we already do. Maybe a change we could make. Put that down in those comments right down there as well. And we just want to make sure that we continue providing the strong content that we've given you here today far into the future as well.
Absolutely. And to that end, sometimes life's tougher than a $2 steak. And when you've had a hard day, but you get to come home at the end of it all and do a podcast with one of your best friends, that's like A1 on top of your shitty steak. And I like to think that Out on That Line can be that for everybody. Let us be your A1 podcast, number one in your hearts, number one in your lives. Let us fill you up. Let us douse your crappy cut of steak in our saucy love at youtube.com/C/out on that line. That's right. It's youtube.com/C/out on that line.
Saucy love. God damn it.
Always.
Well, until next time.